Mr. James Scarlett. We went again with Stinky Pete, and I think we both of us are a little bit shell shocked.
Fucking yeah, I feel like a little bit tingly in a weird way. We've just done an hour and 15 minutes with Pete, haven't we? And we're now recording the intro.
It
How do
was
you feel?
emotional.
Yeah, it's not for the faint-hearted, is it?
Yeah, so yeah, this episode will be by request. James and I are reminding you all by request from Fran to have Stinky Pete on the podcast. Not only that, 84 questions. 84 questions. If you don't know who Stinky Pete is, you haven't heard any episodes before. He's the guy who James hires the portals for trees and ArcTanGent. He came on and was as frank about that about that industry as you might have hoped or feared. I certainly feared, and my fears were realised. You get the full contents of what goes in that loo and where it goes afterwards. Sometimes in the most unpleasant places. So
But by the end, your face was, I've never seen your face look like that before.
it's just,
You,
and I'm not great. You know, you get people like that, literal toilet humor. The kind of people who go like, "Oh, you like look at the size of my toe, like and thing." I'm just not that person. I don't. I'm almost like to live a squeamish about it. I like a nice private porcelain toilet to myself, and I don't want to hear about anybody else's business, and I don't want to tell you about my business. And I'm just, if that makes me a prude in the toilet, then I am a prude in the toilet. And Stinky Pete came with both barrels to wipe it people. So if you are like me and you don't necessarily want to hear about the size of a guy's shite, maybe after the intro of this one, this is not the podcast for you. This is your trigger warning. Do not come on to us afterwards and go, by the way, some of these stories were horrific. We are telling you right now that those stories are horrific.
yeah. So it's good though. You'll enjoy it. If you know you're not going to enjoy it, then fine. But
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, it's not insensitive. It's not like there's any slurs in it. It's not like it's just, I mean, it's a bit piss and shit. And I mean, what else? How much more transparent can we be about it? So, by all means, if that's your thing, get about it. We do get a lot of questions answered, and there is some business side to it as well, and how it all pans out at festivals. But we just want to be clear. Do not be sitting having your lunch with us playing in the background of your family and think this is going to be fitting conversation for my lunch hour, because it's probably not.
No, agreed. But yeah, big thanks to Pete for coming on. Appreciate it. So tell me about your week, Gav. What's been going on? You've had a busy one, I think.
It has been a bit of a busy week, and I've got a couple of things I really want to address with it as well. So we had at the tail end of last week, I think Friday would have been payday. We announced Death Heaven, Author and Punisher, Toxic Holocaust, Mesa, and Necrot for Damnation, taking us to the halfway mark, 24 of the 48 bands that are going to be announced for this year. 5 debuts, 5 bands we were very excited to have across 5 very different genres. So if you don't know those bands, like Death Metal's Death Avenger, Black and Shoegaze, the biggest of those bands, then off them Punisher at Trees or at ArcTanGent last year, that an industrial one-man sort of noise project, Toxic Holocaust, old school thrash, Mesa, Italian Doom, Necrot, US death metal. So in my eyes, that's the way we want all our announcements to be. Like when you can line things up like that, you can get across the genres, and there's a wee bit of something for everyone. And I mean, it was very, very well received. How are those bands for your liking, James?
Well, I am a big fan of all of Death Heaven's bits of their career. Oh, I think we might have said on the podcast recently, I liked the Death Heaven melodic thing they did on the last album, but I'm also happy that they've gone heavy again. So that'll be amazing. The band that I'm really excited to see is Mesa. Mesa's last album I really like. I'm not like a massive Doom fan, but they're quite like song-based Doom, aren't they?
Yeah,
It's like this, I don't know. Um, it's quite out there, but also it crosses into the sort of Green Lung type territory where they've actually got songs.
yeah.
And it's not particularly heavy. It's just like nice thick guitar riffs and good vocals. I'm yeah, really, really into that book and really, really am. And Author and Punisher, I didn't properly watch ArcTangent last year. I did see it, but really not in a very engaged way. So yeah, up for that. And the other two, I don't think I know. Say the names again.
Toxic Holocaust and Necrot. So maybe falling into
No.
your, I mean,
Yeah.
as you say, Hard and Fast is not exactly your go-to type of music. So that's one. I mean, Toxic Holocaust kind of band, you tick that off for the fan that's maybe isn't interested in Messer. So I mean, you need to make sure, because a lot of these bands, not that those two are clashing, but a lot of these bands, that's how your day will pan out at Damnation. A band like Messer will be playing while a band like Toxic Holocaust are playing at the same time. So
yeah, exactly.
went really well. The reason someone mentioned on the Damnation forum, how was it you could announce Death Heaven when they're on the Outbreak lineup, and not just because they're on an festivals lineup, but Outbreak happens at Beck Arena. The Manchester happens at Beck Arena. So well spotted. We shouldn't have been allowed to announce Death Heaven, and I want to shout out the guys at Outbreak who gave us permission to do that. Now, that's unusual. It's unusual. And I tell you what, it's a real feel-good factor to it. I feel there's something about it at the minute, having promoters like myself, you, the guys for Outbreak, who are actively helping each other out. Is there's something great about that, because you've done so many years where it is always the stereotypical no and people being in your way. Almost like that's industry standard, that you're daft even asking the question. So we've got a frustrating point at the minute. We still don't have headliners locked in, but we'd have a lot of bands locked in that are just blocked by other events, other things happening, be it European tours or other fests, whatever. And we've got these bands. So we had Toxic Holocaust, Mesa, Necrot, and Off and Punch lined up. You're like, you want to come out, especially in Peyton, have like a cherry at the top of the cake, something that's like, and here's a big name alongside these exciting names. And we couldn't announce anything. Of all the bands booked, we couldn't announce anything. So I just went to the Outbreak guys, who I know quite well, and I believe all three listen to this podcast as well. So it's great to be able to come on here and give them a shout that they deserve. And I said, look, is there any, you'd be doing us a massive favour? Could we, your ticket sales seem to be flying, could we announce Death Heaven? And they said yes. So I was like, brilliant, fantastic. It's class. And to be fair, they asked us if they could have a Converge on a poster when they were our headliner. And the following year, we're going to do Outbreak in Manchester, I think their Mayfield Depot year. And we said yes. So it would have been, as much as I almost went into the question thinking this is going to be the answer no, because I've been disappointed that often with how the industry works, it would have been disappointing, because ultimately when the shoe was on our foot, we stepped aside to allow them to have a hardcore band on with an announcement they wanted a big hardcore name. So when they came back, I was like, good for them. And with that question being asked, I thought, right, well, I'm gonna give them the shout out they deserve, and all the best today, guys. And it's, if you're listening to this podcast and Outbreaks, maybe a festival you haven't checked out yet, go and check it out, because it's good folk running it.
I mean, it's an interesting little bit of behind the scenes knowledge there, because it's much harder to say no when someone you know asks you a direct question, isn't it? And actually, if you've already done them a favor, then really it should be a no-brainer. But blocking someone via a booking agent, if the agent asks you, is much easier to do than when somebody asks you, someone that you know. So, like, presumably you could just send them a WhatsApp or whatever, and it's pretty hard to say no to then.
But it's a weird one, because I've had this happen to me before. Is it like in situations where I have, or Damnation's been okay with exclusivity and be like, okay, well, fair enough, we can work with that, or let's meet a wee compromise here. It doesn't need to be as hard and fast that, but we could meet somewhere. It's always, listen, if Outbreak had done 1,000 tickets and they're looking at it saying this really we need to sell every ticket, they've got every right to come back and say, no, listen, that's just, it's not going to happen. But I mean, I saw the last post said 70% sold. So that for the Manchester gig, so they're doing just fine, and standing in the way of Damnation when we could have done a bit of solid to get us out it would have been poor form. But great. It's I've also had it in our direction where it wouldn't have affected the events involved and been told no. So I'm a bit like I appreciate that, and I like that. Maybe a few years back, I felt like I was the only guy from my side of the industry that felt like he was ever trying to build bridges and say, look, we don't need to operate the way it operated 20 years ago. You don't need to. It's not like standing in everyone else's heads, not making your event any more successful. If anything, if we all came up together, there's just going to be a bigger fan base to go between the festivals. It just feels like more and more often I'm doing this with you, and then an example like this where I feel like there's just better examples where people are working together, even if on the face it you look like a rival event.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Because I started with the ethic of like wanting to do the opposite of Live Nation in terms of exclusivity, and now you find yourself doing some of the things you hated but then knowing where the line is. I mean, there's an interesting, I don't know if they'll thank me for telling this story or not, but there's an interesting one with me and Radar in that who we get on very well with. I know you get on well with the Radar guys, and so do I. They blocked me on Sleep Token a few years ago. And like it was a very much like Sleep Token could have played 2000 Trees that year, and Radar blocked me. And I've been asked twice this year to relax exclusivities for Radar, and I've said yes both times. But each time it comes up, I'm like, yeah, but Sleep Token. Do you know what I mean? It's like, well, it's like, how do you decide whether you're going to block someone or not?
But and then you go, because not everything's just a black and white, like they flip a coin of heads or tails. It's like in that situation, we could both see why they would want to have Sleep Token to themselves in that situation. And they're this up and coming event moving to Manchester, lost Beck Arena, get screwed over for the arena, went somewhere else and probably needed the power of Sleep Token to really make their mark, which it did. And then you've got this huge event like 2000 Trees going, oh, we'll have a slice of that pie too. I mean, we're very, very friendly, obviously. And I don't ever want to get in a situation where we're fighting over bands. But I'm sure at some point you had something like that. Damnation's a one-day Damnation with one headline, and you're like, yeah, if I could have that band too. But like, James, you're really, unless I'm sold out, you're really taking the legs away from there. I mean, just having that honest conversation, like that would not be a good look for Damnation if that shows up as one of your main supports in one of your stages.
No, we have like conversations. I said to you this year about a band, do you mind if I book them, even though they're not on your lineup this year? Because it feels like a Damnation booking. It feels like me, like partly through the podcast, partly how close we've got in our knowing about the other person's festival. I felt like that was just ArcTanGent, just like stealing a Damnation idea, which I have stolen, by the way. Thanks for the approval, Gav. It's not a done deal, but thank you, appreciate it. So yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? But
it is. But I just want to. Sometimes when there's good news to share, it's nice to share it. Some other good news is we put dragged into sunlight. I'm wearing the t-shirt that they gave me. They gifted me Damnation, which I thought at the time, well, that's very, very generous of them. Alongside, apparently, I'm getting sent one of these vinyls as well, which hasn't arrived yet. So if you're listening, guys, let's get that one moving along too. But what I didn't realise at the time when I allowed Dragged Into Sunlight to sell over both days at Damnation, because I get kind of excited about the whole, there's going to be the vinyl repress, and I wanted the fans who'd bought the Night of Salvation tickets to get the benefit of being able to come in and do it. I never thought about the actual carnage it was going to cause in the merch tent. And they effectively closed down the merch tent by having an unbelievable queue stretching one side of the front, everything. Then the following day, they came back, done it again with the added help of Nails, having their own queue across the front, everything. Damnation's merch took a massive hit, several thousand in sales. And we came back with so much more than we've ever done before. So it's been sitting there in a while. When it gets to the point, the lineup merch, once it's out of sight, out of mind. So we just decided with the heroes at Pins and Knuckles, let's do a sale. The 30 quid t-shirts down to 19, 45 quid hoods down to 25, and just get them on people's backs rather than sitting in Margate in their factory for the next 10 years to end up going to fucking landfill with a charity donation. So I'm delighted to report that folk took advantage of that sale, and we ended up selling out a bunch of other stuff as well, like our joggers and that were full price. So thank you to everyone that went that. But that was it's a tough out for an organizer, because you'd never want, we're not an event that puts merch on sale and then discounts it. It just doesn't happen. Maybe a couple of odd items down the years that somebody might have picked up for my mum or Kelly at the stall, but that's not something we do. We don't have a winter sale and then discount. But with this, it was just the stock levels were so high. It just is wasted stock that I was just so chuffed to see it actually going out to people, even if there's no a great profit margin. But at least being in somebody's back is better than being in a shelf.
Yeah, absolutely. Is it going to change the way you organise the merch next year?
So it was I had that. There's more people at Damnation this year than the year before, with only a slight increase in the stock levels. Yeah, it's just, if you're signing up to spend £160 on a vinyl, you're mentally the drained that you whether like you're just I've showed up at the event and I've spent £160 and signed up for a vinyl. I'm just not in the headspace to go and buy a £45 hood and a t-shirt.
No. I mean, it's such a one-off thing, isn't it? That
It was, and I feel like we had. I heard through a few of the sellers for bands as well. Like maybe Decapitated never really had a great deal of stuff with them. Like the seller was like, "This stuff will be gone in 2 hours," and at the end of the night, it was out, it was still there. So I mean, I'm having a laugh at the whole. I'm not in a mood about the fact that we've done that for Drag Race something, but it did have a knock-on effect. And then this week, being able to get that stuff in sale. So there is still, by the time you hear this, no doubt there still will be our t-shirts and some hoods available at effectively half price. So, by all means, you want to get yourself some quality new threads, then that's the place damnationfestival.co.uk/merch. And then the third piece of good news from our birthday, our drunken birthday wish pod for last week, which that was good fun. That was good fun.
I enjoyed listening back to it. I wasn't sure if we were going to go and got ourselves cancelled with a couple of rums and some chat about neurosis. I woke up the next morning and I was like, did I really talk about neurosis when I was pissed? It's like, fucking hell.
What am I doing here? Why am I mentioning neurosis? You can even see drunk James going through like, why am I talking about neurosis? There's red flags in the conversation, and neurosis are definitely one of them. But those who either haven't heard it yet or to remind you, we asked for a birthday wish, and I said, with folk who have been with us since the start, subscribe, of which at this point I think there's like 30 odd, which is a huge number when you think about it. 30 odd people in the last 4 or 5 days have pledged some sort of monthly fee through subscription and Patreon, and also we can obviously get the Ko-fi running in the background. So it's brilliant to see. Honestly, it's a wee buzz every time it goes through. You feel it's building up. That money gets split 3 ways at the end of each month with myself, James, and Bri. As I said, if we can get more money involved in that, we might have a pot to maybe push this in a different direction via marketing, advertising, people help us with social media. It would be class.
Yeah, it makes a difference, and we were genuinely chuffed to see the subscriptions going up this week, weren't we? We've been chatting privately, and it's good. It's nice to see.
So was that. I have to say, and since we last spoke, it's been a very positive wee spell. I'm buzzing about how things have gone lately, and long may that continue. How about yourself? What have you been up to?
Well, the best thing, do you know what? So, sometimes there's something playing on your mind and you've just got to, work-wise, and you've just got to address it and deal with it. And on Friday night this week, after I'd got Kit to sleep, I spent 3 hours on the couch on a Friday night while you were out partying. I was prepping for the tour, and I feel very much more relaxed than I did about the tour. Now I feel like we've got a really, really good plan in place for what we're going to talk about, and how we'll structure the show. And we've got a list of sort of exclusive stories, haven't we? We've managed, even though we're a year in, to keep some shit up our sleeves, which you did a lot better than me. So I've had to go digging, and I've now managed to find some stuff that we've never talked about before. So yeah, I'm fucking super stoked now.
And I wasn't just out partying because that's how my life goes. It was my 12th anniversary of being married to my wife, so we're out for that. And James, I'm sitting after going for a nice dinner and sitting in a cocktail bar, and I've got this list of all these stories, which I was quite impressed at, but at the time I just thought it was being funny and sent them back. Get a life.
Get a life. Oh, well, I did 3 hours work on the couch on my own, and he just replies, "Get a life."
But I appreciate it. I haven't actually gone through. Sat and went through it all, but I feel good about that. Because you're great for. I want to tell you the story. I know we always say this. We do a lot of this live, but that's deliberate. It's not because we couldn't speak to each other. You like to tell a story, and it for being the first time I've heard it, which is, I suppose, it's quite a natural response, and I don't need to be like, that was funny the first time you told me, and I'm not going to do a fake laugh for you. So you like these stories to be first time I'm hearing it, which is why when you put the wee list of what the stories are, it's really just a title. So I'm like, I'm looking forward to hearing that. But then I'm thinking, like, I'm not going to tell you until but that's just Bristol. So then we need to navigate. Do we do that times 7? Or what I think now, because we're going to have a bank of them, is do we pick and choose as we go through them? So by the time you get to Leeds, and by the end of the second weekend, there might still be a story you tell that'll be the first time I ever hear that story will be Leeds. And I'd like to do that vice versa. So you might have maybe we tell the McGlath story every single time. Or maybe we talk about, I don't know, picking another one every single time. But we also have ones where because then it's like it just it creates that same chemistry we've got at the moment, where you're talking about stuff that you haven't heard before. Rather than, I know that it'd be tough to listen to a good story 7 times, but it's the reaction for it. You're really just telling that story to the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I've managed to. I've got a story which is about my worst ever day of running festivals, and it's a story that starts at 6 a.m. and ends at about 11 p.m. and the fucking sorry, it starts at 6 a.m., ends at 11 p.m. It basically, the day was an absolute fucking car crash right off. And yeah, we're definitely talking about that in Bristol. We probably talk about it every night, we'll see.
Good,
So
good.
yeah, it's going to be good. Also this week, I went to see Opeth. Now, if I was to make a list of my favorite bands of all time, they'd be somewhere in there. And it's very rarely I get to see those bands in my home city. You know, like if you go and see Deftones or the Mars Volta or Metallica, you're invariably traveling to London. So it was very nice to be able to just wander down to the Bristol Beacon. My first time there since they refurbed it. It's a big old like theatre. There's a lot of like classical gigs, and it's not all just rock stuff. It's a really grand venue for Opeth. And yeah, they were, I mean, if you've seen Opeth live before, there's probably no surprises that they recreate their sound absolutely perfectly. The musicianship's fucking first class. The set list, they played 4 new songs and then some hits. I thought the new songs were fucking brilliant. It was really great to hear the new songs. And they do their thing, don't they? They're not like, it's not like going to see Rammstein when you go and see Opeth. So the live show is in some ways quite understated, but I had a really fucking lovely time.
Am I right? Is that the one that had seating?
Yeah.
Was it seating? And how did that go? I mean, it strikes me as that's the kind of crowd and band where that would work well. You aren't necessarily waiting to open up the mosh pit.
No, exactly. And so it's seated upstairs and seated on the sides, but then downstairs, which is where we were, the front sort of 3/4 is standing, but behind it there's a raised seating area. So I watched 4 songs standing, and then I was like, "Oh, I'm just going to go and sit down." These lovely, comfortable chairs. It's a nice. It's You don't need to be stood up to watch Opeth, do you? I mean, I know that makes me sound old, but it's all very chilled, and you just get to listen to them playing. So
Yeah.
it was good. It was a good time. Talking of good times with bands I love, the Mars Volta, this is wild, are currently on tour in the US supporting Deftones, right?
Yeah.
And do you know what the fucking lunatics did?
They played the new album in full,
Yeah,
unreleased album in full.
they got the biggest ever, well, I suppose they've supported some big bands over the years, but one of their biggest ever tours, an opportunity to win over some new fans. And they played 18 new songs from their new album that hasn't been released. In fact, no one knew really that there was a new album coming. And they've just gone out there and gone, here's a load of songs you don't know, 18 of them. See you later.
Right, okay, so you're
Incredible.
Mr. Mars Volta tattooed on your chest. How would you feel about that? So you're showing up to see Deftones
Yeah.
because you don't get to see Mars Volta that often. So you're a big fan. Might be your first time you're getting to see the Mars Volta, and you show up and they play you an unreleased album.
Yeah, it's pretty frustrating that. And it's weird because they had a period. So I went to I saw them a lot of times in London back in the whenever that was, the late 2000s. And they got progressively more challenging live. Like when I first went to see them, they were playing their first album, and it was, there was some like instrumental wig out sections, but it wasn't too mad. By the time they properly went off the side of the mountain, they would just do a half an hour jam. You'd forget what song they were playing. And then like 30 minutes later, they'd bring you back into the song and you're like, oh yeah, they're still playing that song. And that when you're stood at the sort of forum in Kentish Town, that's quite challenging. 30 minutes of jamming. It's like watching Led Zeppelin in the 70s. It was a bit a bit self-indulgent, I would say. And this is fucking, I mean, I don't know what these news, I've watched a couple of YouTube of this, but I don't know what these new songs are like, how proggy it is. But 18 new songs is farcical, and I don't think anyone really wants that other than the band, do they? There's no band you want to see play all their new songs.
Unreleased. I mean, new's bad enough when you've at least had the chance a week or a month or 2 months to digest. and some you still want to go and hear the bangers, but unreleased, that you don't even, there's no moment where you could be, oh, this is what that one I actually really enjoyed in the car last week.
Yeah, but yes, agreed. But big but, you've got to love the fact that they don't give a fuck what we think. They don't give a fuck what anyone thinks. They never really have. They came back after such a long period out with that last album, and they released an album that sounds nothing like any of their previous albums and is super chilled and sort of poppy in a way. They don't care. Like, I've got no idea what the next thing will be, other than it almost certainly won't be a return to what everyone wants, because they'll never do what you want, which is quite nice.
Is it? So, no, I mean, I suppose Mars Volta fans like their selfish just a bit. I suppose that's part of the appeal. And it's like,
Yeah.
you know what, I really want that, and that's not what they're giving me. And that's why I kind of like it, which is an oddity in itself. But is that you? Is that your week?
It's good. That's me. It's been like a warm comfort blanket since Pete's gone and we stopped talking about poo. It's like we've gone back into our normal zone, haven't we? No one's mentioned poo for like 10 minutes.
When we cut into that segment and you see me getting more tense and anxious as we go to the end, then you realise that this is much more like us, to be fair. So, okay, before we get, because that'll be long enough, because I think we had Stinky Pete on for a fair chunk of time. So, let's shout out to our good man, Lou's Brews. He's done this unbelievable drop of new sauces. Have you seen the artwork for his life is peach tea? And it's the corn artwork. I mean,
fantastic.
He's best yet, probably. It looks fantastic. He's got a new Galaxy Sriracha one, and he's got, I can't remember what the third one was. I have ordered them all. This is how much I'm into this. He sends them out to us eventually for free. You always get a package. I don't want to wait for it. So I just used my own Pod 15 code and went and done a batch order of all these new ones, which I'm hoping will be here, if not today, tomorrow. And I'm looking forward to getting into them. You should follow suit. Pod 15, loosebruce.co.uk. Get yourself some of these sauces. If you want a recommendation, I'm sticking with the peri peri lemon and herb, which I've now pretty much wiped out the entire bottle in the space of a week. That is definitely one of his new favourites. And once I've tried the new ones that are coming, I'll let you know how I got on with them too.
Fantastic stuff. I'm in every day on them. Every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, brace yourself. This is Stinky Pete. Mr. Stinky Pete, welcome to Two Promoters and One Lou Boss. How are you, pal?
I can't tell you how long I've waited to do this, boys. Honestly, it's been age. It's been an age.
Do you get asked to come on a lot of? Did you ask to come on a lot of podcasts?
No. Years ago, I did an interview at Cornbury Festival with a guy who was recording a load of stuff, and it went a little bit viral. But no, not really. People aren't interested in the guys that do the toilets. We're like the guys that are like hidden away in the background, like quietly working the whole time, And everyone just forgets about it.
There's nothing quietly about you. As we'll probably find out, did you know that the reason you're on here is because we have subscribers and you actually requested that they asked for you?
Okay, well, I'm honoured.
So what you get is like, if you subscribe to the pod, you get your name put, or you're in a big jar of joy and your name gets picked out, and you can choose. People have asked for free tickets to the festival. People have asked to get their music played, recommend a band, try to reform bands that have broken up. And Fran, if I remember correctly, it was Fran. She asked for Stinky Pete by that name because that's how you've been. So let's just start there. Where the hell did the name Stinky Pete come from?
Well, I mean, we have discussed this before. I think it's just a 2000 Trees thing that some of the organisers just made up one day, because a lot of my friends call me Lou Man. That's what they call me. They know me as Lou Man. I always refer to myself as Pete the Toilet Man whenever I call people. So if I ring up a customer, I go, "It's Pete here, the Toilet Man," and they go, "Who? Oh yeah, Pete." But never Stinky Pete. One of my best mates, whenever he introduces me, goes, "This is a good friend of mine, Portaloo Pete." But other than that, Stinky Pete, it must be a Trees thing. It's 2000 Trees, yeah.
Well, it wasn't. I can assure you, it wasn't made up by the organisers. I don't know where it came from, if I'm honest. I'm going to blame it on one of the other contractors. I think Carl or somebody such as that does our
Yeah,
sound and
maybe, or
lighting.
Daryl, or
Yeah.
yeah, possibly,
So you
yeah.
guys all know each other, don't you? It's like the Gloucestershire
Yeah,
production crew.
we're like a little bit of a family. We're all at different events during the year, um, and we see each other from time to time, and it's just like meeting of old friends whenever we see each other. Yeah.
By all means, if you've got any nicknames for James you'd like to share, I'm happy to hear them.
Legend.
Oh, come on. We're not having that. That is not that type of podcast.
Every time I see Pete at the festival for the first time, he takes the piss out of my denim. That's his base. That's his thing.
Always. The guy wears more denim than anyone I know. Honestly.
He does dress like a danger to children, to be fair. So
yeah. He's cool. He's cool.
Let's get in about it. So, James, you have got plenty, but not only for the organisers' point of view from the two festivals where you guys work together, but 84 questions. We're not going to get through all 84, but 84 questions from the listeners as well. As fucking mental as that is. So, James, take us away.
Yeah, so we got a lot to ask you, Pete. So I thought let's just start with some real stories about stuff that happened at our festival. So can you wind your mind back and talk to me about what happened in 2008 at 2000 Trees? Do you remember this?
Yeah, I remember all of them clearly, James. 2008. So you didn't. Let's go back to 07. So you didn't learn in 07. You put them in the middle of the field. You were green. You guys didn't know anything. You didn't have a lot of toilets. You just plonked them in the middle of the field, and we actually got stuck almost as bad in 2007 as we did in 2008, but not to the point that we had to move anything. In 2008, we got stuck real bad, and the toilets, like you said, filled up. And I do recall Mark Gardner coming and helping a little bit, but it was just a little bit. And he did get some urine on him, and that was from the urinal, because the thing weighs like half a ton when it's got urine in. And so I can clearly remember Kevin going, "This place is flooded anyway, just half tip it over and get the urine out, and then we'll drag it over to the flatbed." And of course, Mark stood there. Kevin tilts the whole thing backwards onto Mark. Mark's dancing around in the grass, stepping in the wee. We get it on the trailer, we move it up. But, we go on. We learn from that. But
so you're blaming us, are you, for the fact that we didn't learn from...
Totally, because where they were put down that track, which is actually the trackway to the main stage, as you know now, there was obviously no stone then, was there? And so John very kindly brought a tractor, couldn't pull Kevin up when he pumped as many loos out as he could, and he was full. We're talking 3.5, 4 ton here. John's tractor was getting stuck. So Rich then went and got another tractor. Rich was pulling John, who was pulling Kevin. There was a load of 3 things trying to pull each other up that managed to get Kevin out. But wow, what a mess. Like we loaded.
So there's a really famous photo, isn't there, of like a tractor pulling a toilet truck, which you had to pick up. You're lifting Portaloos by hand, right?
Yeah.
Full of everything.
Yeah. I mean, a toilet weighs 90 kilos, and when it's full of shit, it's 290 kilos. So that's what we were having to push on. Like we were doing it together in pairs, but you're trying to sort of wade them through this deep, muddy squelch to get them to where the trailer is, to push them on the trailer. It was just
This is the details. We need 90 kilograms to 290 kilograms.
Yeah. I've got the stats. Don't worry. I've got all of them.
You guys are clearly, you know what I mean by that. But we weren't there in 2007. You mean stuck literally, the weather changed and it just became in the middle of a bog, 290 kilos of shit in the middle of a mud field?
He couldn't pull off. He'd sunk. And his tank on the back of his truck was full to the brim. And so he couldn't go anywhere. So the farmer came down in a big John Deere tractor, couldn't pull him. The farmer's son-in-law, Rich, who came down to pull his father-in-law in another tractor. You had 2 tractors and our truck struggling to go up this hill in this mud. I mean, everything was just soaked in mud. But we also had a trailer behind the toilet truck, which would hold 12 loos. And we managed to get 12 full Portaloos on that. So you've got a land train, almost like that Australian Outback Truckers show, of like 4 things going up. I wish I filmed
the mud ruts are like a meter deep at this point, aren't they? Like you're literally just dragging that there's no wheels turning. The tractors are just
Yeah, he
dragging
just
the
pulled
train.
us. He just told us not to do anything. Don't even turn the wheel. Just sit in the cab, and he just pulled us up and sloshed us through.
Because Pete, one of the key things of festival toilets, right, is that they only work if you can get to them to clean them. If you can't
100%.
clean them, they get full pretty quickly, and then it's game
Yeah,
over.
100%. And again, where you guys have learned probably better than anyone because you're very hands-on and you're very involved. It's like you've all learned from your mistakes, and so your toilets are all really easy and good to get to because Rob, Mark, everyone thinks about where's the vehicle got to go? How can it reach this? If we can't get him in here, where's he going to go? And it's all worked out. Whereas some places we go to, it's like Mickey Mouse. You know, you can advise them before, but they're just like, well, you can put him there, it'll be all right, won't it? And you're like, not really. Not when you've got thousands of people around you and you're trying to move a vehicle and a pipe's whipping around and
Yeah,
yeah.
because I mean, layman's terms, even in good weather, if you go, it's very convenient. Let's get 40 toilets right here, slap bang in the middle of the main arena, because that'll be so convenient for somebody to walk 3 foot and get to it. But the problem with that is, that's fine until it needs emptied, which is very quickly. And then you need to get a fucking tanker through the middle of the field, even in good weather. Tanker
Yeah.
through the middle of the field while people are there, or wait until fucking 1 a.m. in the morning and the field's clear. So probably like this podcast does, always just jumps the gun. But you're talking about the end being green. How the hell did you get into this? How did you find yourself as Mr.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a good question. So, yeah, it was. So my lovely wife Jill, her parents are farmers, and her dad sort of inherited a business from his father, which was a catering company, just doing fish and chips, things like that. And he had it on the sideline to run from his farm because farms have always been struggling, and the government were trying to encourage farmers to subsidize their incomes by having secondary businesses from their farms. Anyway, his dad was old and he said, look, I've got this catering business. I know you don't want to do the fish and chips, but possibly you'd like to have these few toilets that I've got. And they were these ratchet trailers, like with literally, they had buckets inside them as toilets. And you had to carry the buckets out, tip them somewhere down a drain and reposition. But he bought them because he saw a niche in the market and there was no toilets at any of these little shows he used to go and do his fish and chips at. So they start doing that. They don't do the fish and chips. They just do the toilets. They're doing them on weekends. They've got about 24 toilets, and they land this little gig down in Southampton. It was a motorcycle jamboree, and at the time I get together with my wife, and she says to me, "You've never met my mom. Do you want to come down to Southampton? My mom's working all weekend at this motorbike jamboree." And I'm like, "What does your mom do? I thought they were farmers." "Well, there's no farming. You don't farm at a motorbike." And she goes, "No, no, no, no. She's doing the toilets." And I was like, "What do you mean she's doing the toilets?" She goes, "No, she's got a couple of plastic toilets and there's 20 odd of them and she has to clean them all weekend." So obviously I want to impress her mom because I fancy her. So I'm like, "Yeah, we'll go down there." So we go to Southampton, and it's just like that. How old was I? I was 22. It's like that light bulb moment that everyone prays they get in their lifetime. I can remember driving into this field, and there was thousands of people there, and there was these blocks of 10, 2 blocks of 10 loose, and we were just surrounded by all these people, and her mom starts the pump and she's like, "We've got to suck these out and get out of here." And I'm going, "Hang on, let me just get this right. You hire these people these toilets, they use them for the weekend, then you load them up, take them back to your farm and take them out again next weekend." And she goes, "Yeah." And I was like, this is what I want to do. This is it. I mean,
this is what I want.
It couldn't be more straightforward. Like, I'm just looking at it, I'm thinking, this is amazing. This is great. And so, yeah, I got involved with them, and we did it for together for what would have been like 11 years, something like that, 10 years. And we sort of wanted different things. They were getting old and they were just trying to make as much money as they could out of the business. But my wife and I wanted to grow it, and we just wanted to keep buying kit and getting bigger and take on contracts. And so in 2006, we bought them out, and we just went on our own. And yeah, it's just gone. We've got 1,000 toilets now. We've got 1,000 loose.
So it's safe to say then. So you weren't sitting at, I don't know, high school or college, and you're like, "No, I just love a good shite." No, I mean, like,
it wasn't even that. It wasn't even that good. It was the whole. It was a whole logistical side of it. It was like, so you have to get these plastic boxes out of this field. 80 miles back to Gloucestershire, get them clean, turn them around, and then re-deliver them maybe to Swindon or down to Oxford, and you've got to do it in a certain time frame. Yeah, I don't know what it was. I couldn't tell you the exact thing, but I know it was a light bulb moment, and it was life changing, and I can clearly remember it.
And as well, because it's one of those ones where you're saying it's like it's never not going to be absolutely essential. You have toilets, you know what I mean? It's not going to be a trend that changes. Oh, by the way, they're not going to be into that type of music or that fashion. It's like, no, a toilet's always going to be required. And you find the same like with the people who have got the mojo barrier or the staging. It's these select companies that have got it, and then it's like they kind of control the market because, as you say, they've got enough kit to cater for. So then the prices become pretty much what they want them to be.
Yeah, and I've seen the industry over the years change and grow, and it's become very competitive. There was a little bit of a slump during COVID where everyone was struggling, and a lot of events didn't happen. Thank God we still have a lot of construction as well. Half our business is construction, which got us through that. But a lot of people really struggled during the times of COVID, and lots of companies went under. They were highly indebted. I just feel we've done it all right. We've paid for everything as we've gone along. We don't owe anyone any money. We've just ticked along and grown sort of 5 to 10% every year for the last 29 years. Just keeps growing. There's got to be a point where it needs to level out.
There's, as Gav said, we've got a lot of questions. I just wanted to jump forward to one. My brother would like to ask you. He says you've got a very nice house, Pete. Toilets must pay well.
Great question, Rob.
Okay. My house is okay. Look, hey, hard work pays. It's a fact in life, isn't it? And I don't know if I don't think about Rob when I'm doing 100 hours a week for the whole of the summer without a day off, but maybe I will this year. Okay.
Good for you. Good for you. Okay. I want to wind your mind back to another toilet related incident at 2000 Trees. Once upon a time, when we used to do the silent disco inside the cave stage, and it was raining one night. I don't exactly know what year this was, but it's a long time ago. It was raining, and the silent disco guys had announced to us that you're not allowed to get the headphones wet. So we had to shut the cave, and there was a one in, one out system, which seemed like a great idea until people needed a piss. So, because basically people were trying to leave to go to toilet, and they were getting their headphones taken off them, and they were like, "What? Okay, well, we're not going to leave then." And there was like a line of men inside the cave stage using it as a toilet, which at that point.
I don't remember. I remember you moving a load of loos in a panic one evening down towards the cave. Was that night?
This is why. So you were the one then. We were then on the phone to you saying, "Pete."
Yeah, I can remember that. Yeah, we had to come in there and we dropped off sort of another 20 outside the cave. But those toilets by the cave get hammered. Although you have rectified that now, and you've bridged a couple of stages in between. You've made that big block of like 58, whatever, which works really well from the cave.
But do you not recall the chaos, the sort of the dangerous chaos? I saw someone. You were kind of driving up a small slope with your. It's not a four-wheel drive, is it? With your van on the front, and you're towing a toilet tanker on the back, and it's all the wheels are spinning, and there's people jumping across your like what do you call it, the tow bar that's holding the two things together.
In
the dark.
I know. And I don't know if you can recall. I don't know if it was that year or the year before that when it was back when Richie was there. Remember Blonde Richie?
Yeah.
And we decided. I didn't actually decide. I think Mark decided this, but that we were going to move the urinal trailer. We called it the Green Goddess. It had about 24 pods inside the trailer. Richie was going to move that closer to the cave before everyone came for the silent disco. Anyway, he hitches it on this Suzuki, whatever he had, with big fat tires on, and he starts trying to drive it across. All these people start leaving the main stage and coming towards him, and he's trying to drive through this mud. And I was just stepping back and watching it, but the trailer, his thing is swaying around, the tires are spinning, and obviously all your people at your festival are having a great time, and they're all like cheering him on, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this is going to finish us. Anyway, he managed to get it to where he needed to, but it's that kind of thing, obviously, just would not ever happen anymore. Those were like the cowboy days of when we were struggling and working out how to do things. Things don't happen like that anymore. But I can remember that clearly. And I can remember thinking, health and safety nightmare.
Yeah, it's fairly terrifying. Okay, last one I wanted to remind you about is when the toilet tanker fell over. Now, I don't actually know this story, so I'm hoping you remember it. I
Oh,
wasn't
I remember it
involved.
clearly. Yeah,
Tell
totally.
us what
Like
happened.
crystal. So it was decided to site it by the main gate because
So
it's nice hard stone.
tell people what you mean by a toilet tanker.
So on the back of an articulated lorry, you've got a tanker that can hold 30,000 liters of waste. Okay. So if the lorry driver drops drops that trailer off, he should position the legs of the trailer onto some railway sleepers to stabilize it, leave it level, and then it should be able to stay like that, whether it gets filled with waste or not, for him to come and back his lorry underneath it. But the guy who had dropped the trailer off, and I won't mention companies and where it came from, but the guy who had dropped the trailer off had for some reason, let all the air out. There's like an airline on there, and he'd let all the air out, and he'd only put the front legs on 2 sleepers instead of like 4 or 6 or whatever he needed to. Obviously in a hurry, whatever, and he does this. Anyway, we were quite naive about it. We didn't notice. So all weekend, we're blowing into this tank. And as the tank's getting fuller and fuller to the top, it's heavy. I mean, it weighs 45 tons when it's full. And the last few bits that we were blowing in, and this was literally on the Sunday afternoon after a lot of people had gone home and the job was finished. Kevin was blowing a load in there, and the whole tanker, it was like watching the Titanic going down. The whole tanker started going, and Kevin went, "Oh, she's gonna blow!" And he just stepped back, and the tanker, which is level like this is the front, just went onto the floor. It hit the ground, and there's like a little snifter valve there to let air out, which had been left open, which you need to have open for safety reasons. We weren't aware of this. The snifter valve's open, so we were all stood there, just watched this thing just land on the ground, and we hear this, and everyone goes, "What?" We look around, and all this green liquid is coming on all your stone by the gate. We're like, so we're like panicking. We ring the contractor whose tanker it was, and we go, "What? Fucking thing's blown over!" And he goes, okay, shut the snifter valve. And we're going, "Where? What snifter?" And he tells us, so we shut this valve, and it stops, but it's still sat at an angle. We're surrounded by this effluent. We're like watering it down. It's going between John's stones. It's going back in the ground. We're trying to clean it all. Ring Mark Gardner, like sheer panic, like he will have never seen him so pale. I mean, he's pale anyway, but he was pale. He comes down and he's like, oh my God, oh my. And he's like, Mark, it'll be fine. He's like, he goes and gets 2 machines. And Kevin's like, "There's no way those things are going to pick that thing up. It's 45 tons and all this." Anyway, Mark Gardner and one of your drivers come on either side with these machines and try and lift them. Just bend the forks on one of the machines straight away. So I rang the tanker company. I said, "Send another empty tanker out. You can suck this one out. It'll be lighter. You can lift it and then remove this and take everything away," which they came and did straight away. Anyway, there's all this like green liquid left on the stones. So we must have used about 3,000 liters of cleaner and water. We're literally hosing this thing for like 2 hours till it's spotless, and it's all going back into the ground. Jump forward. I don't know if anyone told John about this. Okay, I don't know if they know about this. I apologize many years ago.
Because some of them listen to the podcast, so they are going to know about it now.
Apologize. This was a long time ago, but one bit of hilarity came out of it is when I arrived the next year to do the festival. John comes up to me and goes, "You're not putting that tanker by the main gate again, are you?" And I'm thinking, he knows what's happened. Like, he's obviously cool about it. I don't say anything. I went, "Oh no, John, no, we're sighting it in the field on a trackway and all this. Don't worry." And he goes, "Because you should see how amazing my tomato plants are by the gate." And I'm like, because tomato seeds are the only things that survive. You know, that little jelly layer around them, they seem to survive. Like they're growing out the ground.
Genetically modified.
They've been modified genetically by 2,000 trees, but it was nip and tuck. But it again, like everything, it ended up okay. So we can laugh now, can't we? But I actually have a story for you, James, which I've never told you. It's one of my favorite stories, and it is sort of toilet related, but it's like a feel good thing. So we finish trees. Yeah, as you know, we pack up as much as we can before midday, then we disappear for a few hours, and we come back in the afternoon and finish everything while your punters all leave. Now, you know, Gav, there's one road. out of trees there, isn't there? Back to the main road. There's one road. It's quite narrow. It's wide enough for 2 vehicles, but it's quite narrow. It's one of those hot weekends, right? It's boiling hot. I've been off and done a couple of other jobs. I come back, I swing around the corner at the end, coming back to trees, and there's like 1,000 vehicles, all just queuing up on my right-hand side, like wanting to leave, but stuck on the road. Everyone's got their windows down. It's boiling hot. And as I turn, I don't know why, because I've been around these people all weekend, taking all their crap and listening to all their jokes and their drunken things. And I just honked my horn a few times. And then all of a sudden, like in a cacophony in order, all the cars that I drove past, like 1,000 cars for the whole lane, all started going. And I stuck my arm out the window and I high-fived about 1,000 people. Literally, my arm was numb by the time I got there. But they were all hanging out of their cars going, and high-fiving me. I drove down the show, just everyone's high-fiving. It was great. It was absolutely great. And I didn't have time to turn a camera on or film anything. It was in live in the moment it happened. It was fantastic.
Amazing. Mate,
that's one of my favorite memories of trees ever, literally.
You're going to be famous now after doing this podcast. You know that, right? Your days of cleaning a toilet and left alone to your work have gone now.
You're basically fucked. We'll have a lot of listeners who are part of that convoy of the high fives as well.
Yeah.
So you probably bring back some good memories. Just before we go into the logistics, because we do have a very nerdy section of the listenership who want to know all the fucking details down to weights and measurements. Then when you get everything right and Trees gets everything right and you've nailed it right, but it's 2012 and Mother Nature has another fucking idea and it's just nothing can be done to stop it turning into, I was there, fucking knee deep quagmire. What do you do in that situation? There can't be any placement where the toilets still work. How do you get to them? How do you keep it that it's safe and people aren't just swimming about in shite?
Well, I mean, believe it or not, but this is what I'm saying about these guys. Like they've thought this through to the degree that almost everywhere that we have to drive has a trackway to get us up somewhere, a downhill run to get us behind toilets, and then a downhill run to get out. So there's very, very few places that you could actually get stuck in a toilet truck at 2,000 trees now. That's how. I mean, I don't know who to heap the praise on, but I'd like to say Rob because he has made a lot of effort with the toilets, and that's the genius of Rob.
He'll very much like you to say that too.
Yeah, but he likes yeah, but you've got to admit, James, he's very good at he sees things. He sees like simplicity and layout, and he likes everything to be all neat and to work. And so
you're raging. James is absolutely raging.
No, but
it's true.
It's true.
That's the genius of Rob is gonna get cut.
Look,
oh yeah, okay.
Okay. There's gonna be a T-shirt Rob wears about the festivals. That's the genius of Rob.
No, he has. He's laid it out well. He's laid it, and that's not to insult Mark, who was doing it before him, because Mark pretty much did 80% of it before Rob. But Rob's like fine-tuned it and made it even better. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. But I remember, in 2012 when you got like liquid mud, for you the toilet, sometimes the mud's right up to the door of the toilet, isn't it? And you're literally, to clean a portaloo, you got to open the door and sort of scrape 3 inches of liquid mud out of the door.
So basically, what was happening with those loos, James? I don't know how often you looked inside them. You probably never even went in them when they were that bad. So all your toilets that were there, the mud. So the front of the toilet tank is probably like 0.5 meter high. Okay, and then the pan and that are on the top. That entire front of the toilet tank, so when you open the door, it was all full of mud on the floor. But there was 2 cut through, like chut marks, where their feet and their wellies had been going through. They'd been turning around, sitting on the loo, and then coming back out. So you had like layers of mud with a gap where their legs had been in. So at the end of the festival, we literally were shoveling up these cubes of mud, just flinging them back out in John's field, and then throwing the loos on the thing, because they were just they dried up like these big chunks of mud. It was like the Somme, wasn't it? It was like, well, I don't need to remind you about that, James, do you? I mean, that was like, wow.
We're still all traumatized by it. Okay, should we have a little chat about logistics then? So as Gav said, people genuinely do like to know the real ins and outs of how you run events. So talk to us about first of all, how you do a calculation over how many toilets you even need at an event. Like, who does that calculation? Is it you? Is it the
Yeah,
festival? How
no,
do you?
no, no. It's us, and it's based on. I like to say 75 persons to one loo over an 8-hour period. Okay, and if you're going to exceed the 8-hour period, have it cleaned, or have more loos. And so, if you've got like 16,000 people, say, you can divide that by 75, and that's how many loos I'd recommend you have. And then I would recommend you're having a service every sort of 8 hours. Your servicing is probably every 6 hours because yours get like weirdly yours get more well used than a lot of jobs we do, like 3 times the size of you. I don't know if it's just your clientele or how much they drink, but we do like 450 loos for big festival, and we use probably double the amount of toilet paper on your job than we do for those 450, and we're there all weekend as well. Like, last year we used 40 kilometers of toilet paper at 2,000 trees. 40 kilometers if you lined it
Wow.
all out. Okay,
These are the sort
and
of stats we need. I love
This
it.
is
yeah,
what we need.
we worked it out. We went through 390 liters of hand sanitizer in all those toilets. I mean, that stuff's like, yeah, yeah.
We're
It's
very we're very clean. We're very clean people. We are.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's there to be used, isn't it? And
So
that's
how do you? Okay, so you said 75 toilets.
persons, persons,
Sorry, 75. Say the
persons
number
to
again.
one
Tell
loo.
me.
75 persons to one loo over 8 hours. So if you
Got
had
you.
150 people, 2 loos. If you had 1,500 people, 20 loos. If you had 15,000, 200 loos. Work
So
it out like
how do you work out the dynamics of that with a camping festival? Because obviously the campsite toilets are rammed in the morning and empty all day. Particularly at something like Trees or ArcTanGent, where people are watching the bands. There's no one in the campsite. And then at night time, the main stage toilets get absolutely hammered, but there's no one there in
Yeah,
the
so
morning. How do you?
you basically you got to start really early. So you guys are always like fast asleep, or we're beavering away there in the morning. We start really early. Okay, do the campsites first. They get into the arenas because you can drive around wherever you want because no one's in there. Get all the arenas done. When you finish doing that, you can't even stop and have breakfast. You've got to go back into the campsites because they've all woken up early. They've used the loos, and you've been gone for 4 or 5 hours. You've got to get back in and do them again, and then you can have a break after that.
Okay.
And it just rolls like that. And then you do the campsites again in the evening when everyone's on the main stage. You get into the campsites, do them again properly, and then you can go home after that. Because when they finish the main stage, you make sure you've done the main stages before the big acts have come on, and then they can hammer them, and you're coming back the next morning to do them.
Got you. Got you. Okay.
Just well, I've got you on the numbers there, Pete, because this is I'm at Beck Arena in Manchester, so that's an indoor
Yes.
an indoor building. So they say to about 2,500 is the capacity their indoor toilets will take before they just become overrun, flooded, and I've seen it. It's not, they're not designed to take 5,000 or 6,000 that the arena can take. So any event damnation size always has portals outside the field. I've just put my finger in the air and went 50 to 60. So we've got about 5,000 people there. The capacity is probably trying to be 2,500 inside, and then we're going for 50 or 60 outside. And for the first year, we can get into placement of toilets. We've done a row and a row at the back of, and the ones at the back, I don't know if the doors were even opened, like over the full weekend.
Yeah.
There was no one used them. And then this year, I tried 4 urinals, and they get filled up very quickly. But then again, the toilets were left pretty pristine for having 5,000 people there. And so it's a bit like when you've got one of those sort of 50-50 ones, you've got some inside toilets and you've got urinals. Where do you sit in your 75 to 1?
Well, you sort of got to say, you're saying the venue can hold. They're saying 2,000 persons using the loo, and you have 5,000.
Yeah,
is that right? But so 2.5 times that. So what's 2,500 divided by 75? What would that be? That'd be like 20 loos, 25 loos. That's about all you would need.
right.
But you probably wouldn't even need that though, Gav. You could probably just have like 12 loos for the ladies, and then just have like 5 or 6 urinal pods. Those things hold. That's one of the best inventions like ever. Like, it is unreal. It holds 450 liters of urine. It takes a long time to fill up. They have 20 of them at trees, and they're light when they're empty. They weigh nothing. They stack really nicely. They're really easy to set up. You can put them anywhere. And you ask James, the guys just use the urinals. They just go and use the urinals.
They're such a
It's
lifesaver
quite
because
an
you don't.
intense experience, though,
Oh,
because
yeah, and it's an even more intense
you're nose
experience
to
when
nose with
It's,
three
it's
other
very
blokes.
intimate.
can you imagine us, James? Like, we have to go in. There's no time we can go in there when there isn't guys weeing, except for early in the morning. But so we have to go in there at other times during the day. And the joviality and the banter we have had, like lifting that lid up, slipping our pipe in while they're weeing and stood around it watching us. Like, first of all, they see you coming in, and you can see them thinking, what's he doing? And you're like, "Well, boys," and they're like, "What? He's trying to lift it." And all of a sudden, the thing goes in there, and they're like, "Whoa!" And you hear them all. They're all drunk, and they all start talking to each other. "Whoa, look at this! You get sucked up by that, mate!" And they're all laughing, and yeah. But it's quite stressful going in there when they're in there. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
So urinals is a big part of your plan for a festival, isn't it?
yeah, 100%. It just works. It works. Like, I know we've spoken about these hay bales in the past, and that's messy. It's not good for the ground. It's a no-no. I'm not against the chiwis or the female urinals nowadays. Like, I know a lot of people are like, "Oh God, why would you?" Look at how the girls queue for the toilets. Like, you know, if I was a
Yeah.
girl, I'd use a female urinal.
Yeah. And the whole theory I think you had female urinals at Damnation, didn't you, Gav?
So what wasn't female urinals? There's pink portaloos. So
Oh, okay.
to separate it, and it's not like, I mean, if you're a guy and you use a pink portaloo, no one's chasing you in and pulling you back out. And I've been to Beccarina where they've just been placed randomly. It's like 3 pink, 1 blue, 3 blue, 2 pink, and it's like everyone's just using them as they go. But I thought, look, Damnations are like an 80-20 split, and
Yeah,
a lot of the times, especially with a lot of times, as guys just looking to go and do a pee in queues with women who have no choice whether to use the portaloo or not. So why not get 10 portaloos? We've done a row of 5 and 5. Have urinals beside them, like fenced off, and then it's very clear. Whether
yeah,
you're saying, "Oh, this for them," it's very clear that if you just need a pee and you're a guy, there's these
yeah.
4 banks, and then you can use these 10 if you're a woman. Apparently, that went quite well. But it sounds like we have more toilets in there than
I think you've got
than we
too
need.
many. I think you've got too many, genuinely. And also, having indoor toilets, it's a bit like if you ever have those fancy toilet trailers, which are hellishly expensive, but that's all anyone wants to use. They don't want to go anywhere near the portaloos. So if there's indoor toilets or trailers, they're like, "I ain't going anywhere near there. I'm going in those." And they'll actually queue and stand there for ages to use those rather than going to portaloo.
We had a woman got in touch. Now you think about it again, that 80-20 split. So it's only 20% of your audience as a woman, and we get someone who got in touch and goes, "Their toilets inside were a disgrace. They were flooded. I'm complaining to the venue, complaining to you." And my answer was, "There is portaloos outside that the door wasn't opened. I mean, they were pristine." Like, it's just, I'm not coming to an indoors festival to go to an outdoors toilet. And I'm like, "Well, fuck me, what do you want me to do? Plumbing toilets?" I'm like, I can't. There's only so much I can offer.
You can't change the building. The layout of the building,
right? Some
is.
people are just a bit like, once there's a choice, they don't even care that the choice that one's clean and not flooded. They just, I want to use an indoor toilet because there's an indoor toilet here.
Yeah, there's just no pleasing some people, I guess. Like, you're gonna lose, aren't you? And it's like, you do the best you can, and you can't do any more. What does Kevin always say? His little saying. We'll talk about Kevin in a bit, but he's got some great sayings. And one of his sayings was, "You can only fuck with a cock you've got." And I was like, "Jesus Christ, Kevin." He goes, "Well, it's true, innit?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess in a strange mental way, it is." Yeah.
I need to meet Kevin then.
Good, mate.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
He's
God.
a character.
He is a
He's
character.
Yeah, he is.
Okay, so just to go back to just to finish off on urinals. So the whole theory presumably is the portaloos get filled up very quickly with urine. So you're trying to take anyone that just wants a wee away from the portaloos.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah.
Okay, so then if we go on to portaloos, we have had loads of different layouts over the years at trees, and Gav just said he had two rows and the row behind wasn't getting used, and you've had like U shapes, crescent moons of portaloos. I mean, what is the you must lie in bed at night, Pete, thinking about what the perfect
No,
layout of like
your
20
layout's really
portaloos.
good. Your layout's good now. It's like you got them open. So when they approach the toilets, the opening for the toilets is decent. So as they're approaching, they're looking around, they're looking at doors, and if they can see the majority of the doors, they're going to start heading in a direction. If they get funneled in at one end, and they can just see two or three doors, they start to queue out into the arena, and then you've got someone at the front talking to their mate, not even looking that someone's come out of a loo. If you can get them into a wide area where they can see the front of doors, they just go their own ways, and it works. There's no hectic queues. You don't have bad queues at trees anymore. You don't have it. It just
Yeah.
doesn't. It's been set up in such a way now that it works. It works. You give it a
Okay,
big,
so what a
open,
wide
wide.
entrance is key.
Yeah, we got the loo set up at Big Festival last year was they have 84 loos next to the main stage, and they've got them in U's all the way along. Well, the first U gets well used, and then the rest just don't. It's like you go to the end ones and you go, what's going on? Like no one's using these because they just go to that first bit, stand there like
And what,
sheep.
and what about like a download fest? Me and James were there last year, and they've got to set up where they do their toilets in a big U shape, and then put the urinals in the middle. So you get into it,
Yeah,
it's like, but if you're queuing and you only want to pee, then you've got that whole, am I being rude, skipping the queue because I only need that, or do I need to explain? It just seemed like, unless it's a space restriction, why would you not just have the bank urinals in the next bit of the field?
yeah, I wouldn't agree. I wouldn't agree with that. Like, I would have the urinal separate to where the toilet block is, and how to have the toilet block as open as you can for them to see them, because their eyes are going to gaze across all of them and find where to go, and they're just going to shoot off in different directions. They're not going to just, you're funneling them in like sheep, and if you can get them to have a lot of choice, they'll go to the right places.
And it's not always the most pleasant experience, like when you're doing that and it's mixed genders. So you're saying it's intense enough as you're a guy holding your cock, staring into another man's eyes, having to do that, and you've got women walking past you at the side as well.
No,
It's quite
I
off-putting.
agree. I agree. I totally agree. I think the urinal should be fenced off, and I think they should be to the side of the toilets, because once the guys have gone once and they know where they are, Gav, they're just going to go there the rest of the weekend. Once they've found it once, you're in your little happy place. You know where to go when you're half cut or whatever. You're going straight there, aren't you? And that's it.
Absolutely.
Good,
So
good.
we had a great incident, James. For a long time. Now, at the end of this podcast, I will tell you our worst toilet story just as we finish. Okay, we'll save it till the very end. It's a bad one, but for a long time, this one was, and it's about urinals. So we were doing Lake Fest many years ago, and we had this urinal trailer. It's got these stainless steel troughs. You actually had it at trees years ago. Got these stainless steel troughs down the inside. Where the door was, there's two normal portaloos, but we had boxed them inside this trailer, so they just looked like normal loos. It was a bad move designing it like that when we built that trailer, because you get people in those toilets doing cocaine, whatever, and they're in there for ages, and you can't get into the toilets to service them without coming through the door in front of everyone in the urinals. Anyway, last thing I've got to do at the end of the night is change two loo rolls in these two loos, and then I'm going to sleep. It's like midnight, and the festival's still going mental. And there's people. I'm stood in the doorway holding two loo rolls, just watching these two doors, and guys are coming past me constantly down into the urinal trailer, disappearing. Anyway, this woman comes past me holding a pint glass, pissed out, comes stumbling in. And I sort of see her, but I don't want to take my eyes off these two doors because I want to get these loo rolls in. So I see her go in, and I think nothing of it. Anyway, I hear this. And I'm like, what is? And I turn and look, and she's dropped her jeans. She's holding her pint glass still. She's just leant back into the trough with the back of her ass, and she's just standing there going, weeing in the urinal while her husband or boyfriend or whatever is chatting to her on the other side while he's weeing. And I just look and I went, oh, jeez, I've seen it all now. She takes it off, pulls her jeans up and leaves. I'm thinking, oh my God. But for a long time, that was my worst toilet story. It's like, it scarred me. Honestly, it scarred me.
Decency levels do drop at festivals, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Okay, we've got a couple more A couple more logisticy type questions before we get back to your incredible stories. So there's we've got a listener called Stephen Marsh, and he was asking, which I don't know the answer to this. Like what sort of work goes in, and what costs are there into maintaining your portaloos like all year round, particularly when they get mistreated at events, I guess, with graffiti or other
Yeah, graffiti is a big
damage.
problem. You've got to have the graffiti remover on you because they're gonna graffiti. A lot of them are gonna graffiti, and once one does, the others just copy. It's and very strangely very political at trees. Like, yeah, you've got a lot of Labour supporters. Like, there's a lot of Tory haters. Like, wow, like some of the stuff is like there's sermons written on the walls.
It's basically
You're
just stuck
scrubbing
the
it off, and you're
Tories
like,
in the
yeah,
graffiti. Yeah,
yeah, big time, yeah.
incredible.
But other than graffiti and removing it with graffiti remover, which takes time, it's quite time consuming. They break the odd dispenser, which is going to happen. They pull it off the wall. It's just a couple of pop rivets to put it back on. There's not a lot they can really damage on it.
I mean, do they basically last forever? You said you got
They
a
last a long
thousand.
time.
You got a thousand. Do they? I mean, how
Yeah,
long does a
but my
portaloo
rule
last?
of thumb has always been 12 years on the event with a loo, 12 years on construction with a loo, and anything that's left at the end of its life, it goes into like the pea picker fields and the grower fields, and that's where it dies eventually. So I've got some that are 29, 30 years old that are still out there working. Yeah.
Is there any Woodstock type of moments where you see, especially at the raves or something like that, where you actually see the urinals are getting no urinals, the toilets are getting lifted and then destroyed because
No,
people are jumping them? We've never had that.
no, thankfully, no. I mean, we did have a couple of incidents at Lakefest last year where it must have been the same bunch of guys. They were just trying to tip things over. Like they did in the beginning, and then I think they got called out on it and just stopped. But for the first day or so, they tipped over about 20 loose. Like, and they tipped them over forwards, which is the worst way for it to go, forwards. Particularly if someone's in there, because you're trapped in there, you can't get out the door. It's on the floor. I mean, it's like that's a nasty thing to do to someone, isn't it? Like, I'm all for a game and a joke, but man, can you imagine being pinned down and starting to panic in a loo, and the door is on the floor?
And it comes out, does it? It pours
And
out that way,
a lot of it
presumably.
comes out, and it would come out all over you, and you would be kneeling on top of the door if the door was on the floor, and it would be all over your back and in your hair, and yeah,
That's pretty fucking grim. In
it would
fact,
be horrific.
it's hard to think of anything more grim. That's
So,
I know, great.
yeah. So talk to us about what sort of people you're looking for. You've got a bunch of people that work for you. Like what does it take to actually work in this industry? Because you've got to have a certain type of person, right?
Yeah, it's hard, James. It's hard recruiting staff and finding good guys. So my son works with me now, and he qualified as a welder. He went to college and he's a welder for a few years, and he's a hardworking kid. And he came to us 2 years ago, my wife and I. He said, "I want to come do the toilets." And we were like, "You sure? Like these toilets are always going to be here?" And he goes, "No, I want to come do it." And he's like taken like a duck to water with it. And then I've got my same core group of guys that I've had for a long time who've been loyal to me. And even someone like Kevin, who, like, let's face it, without doubt, he's the best bloke I ever had. 100%.
Yeah.
I still classify him as one of my best friends. He's a fantastic guy. And he even though he works for himself doing fencing and block paving and that now, if I ring him whenever I want, he'll come down for a few hours or a few days. If I just say to him, "I need you for 3 days, I need you to do 3 16-hour days," I just know he'll be there and he'll do it. He won't ask any questions. He'll be there, he'll do it, and he'll disappear. He earns good money. He earns good money as well. You've got to pay them well, James.
Is it as you'd expect for this sort of your absolute chock-a-block in festival season? In fact, probably get too much work, and then you'll get to like the tail end of winter and that there's not a lot going on, or do you have enough of your construction work?
We've got about 450 construction sites, which are pretty good through the winter. It's a good revenue stream, and it keeps the lads busy. And then there's a lot of maintenance and downtime, and they can take their holidays in the winter as well. So everyone gets to go away for a few weeks and do their own thing. So it works quite well like that. But during the summer, it's balls to the walls, Gav. Like it's literally 100-hour weeks.
How many hours a day do you work at 2,000 trees?
We try and just do 16 now, but it might sometimes be 18. So we normally on site from about 4:45, and then we go home at about 9, half 9, somewhere around there when we're done.
So you don't stay on site?
Yeah, we don't, because my house is only about 12 minutes down the road from trees. So I can go home. And so the lads will come stay at my house on that weekend. Then my wife can make us some meals at
Because
night.
it's massive, Pete, because your house is massive.
Is that, yeah, I mean, that's just because I live in this palace, like Rob said. I mean, honestly, it's a bungalow. Don't listen to what he's saying.
We're going to get some quick fire questions at you, Pete. They're just to wrap this up, and then we're going to get into the audience questions because fuck me, man, there was enough of them. So just fire through these ones. Is it true that you often turn your radio off so that event control can't get hold of you?
Yes, I don't turn it off. I just can't hear it because the pump is so loud. And they're trying to radio me, and I'm pumping a toilet out, or I'm washing a toilet, and I can't hear the radio. So, yeah, Rob Safety, who's lovely, like I must be the bane of his life because he's having to ask other people on site, has anyone seen Pete? Where's Pete? They're like, I've got eyes on him. He's over here, and they find me. But he doesn't have to call me that often, Gav, because I'm on it. We're getting things done.
It's true to say, is it true to say, Pete, that you're basically, it's like, those big bridges, you start painting the bridge, and by the time you finish the bridge, you go back to the start and start painting it again. The cleaning toilets is like that. So you're on a route, aren't you? And like they're radioing you saying, first aid's toilet needs emptying, and you're like, well, I've been there an hour ago. I'm going to be there in another 4 hours' time. Is it that?
Yeah, it is that. It is that. Yeah.
So your radio is off. So we cannot.
Well, it's not. My radio's on, but it's on the dashboard because if I'm keeping it on me and I'm in the toilet, and then the guy's not going to hear me if I'm like, he's radioing me and I'm like, it's like in the background. I'm like, Robbie, he can't hear me.
Well, okay. Next question. So it was quite a shock to me to hear that you didn't know you were called Stinky Pete, and I don't ever call you Stinky Pete. I call you Pete, to be clear. But I called it you on the podcast. And now now it turns out you didn't know that name. So the other thing I would like to ask you about that I've mentioned on the podcast, is it true that your hands are blue?
No, my hands are clean.
Are they blue after an event?
Salah's hands, but they're clean.
Are they blue when you finish an event?
No, Kevin's hands used to be blue. They did. They were like severely stained because he never wore gloves ever in the whole time I knew him. And he also, in the 10 years he worked for me, was never, ever sick once. He never had a day off. He was never ill. He was never not at work. I mean, you're talking about a guy. There was one year, James, where a lady came up to us at Trees and he was sort of stood there waiting to do some toilets. This lady came up and goes, excuse me. And you know what he's like? He's very dry. His accent, Gav, is like real hardcore Gloucestershire. It's hard to even imitate it. And he's like, yeah. She goes, I've dropped my phone in that toilet. And he goes, yeah. And she goes, well, can you get it out for me? So he just walks into the loo, he lifts the lid up, sticks his arm in, just turn this off, sticks his arm in, right? Picks this phone out, he's holding it in his hand, and he goes, yeah. And it's like covered in excrement, it's dripping. And she goes, oh, you just clean it for me. And so he goes, wipes it with his finger and goes, here. I kid you not. And she was like, oh, she like took it from him and just tiptoed away.
Pete, that is your worst story, mate. That is so much worse.
No ways, Gav. We've got some bad ones.
That is so much worse than some women peeing in a urinal, mate. That is utterly disgusting.
Gav, honestly.
There's a famous story about Kev. I think this was at Trees, where he looked down into the toilet and saw a £20 note. I don't know who told me this story, and he literally just picked it out, gave it a tiny little rinse,
put it in his pocket,
put it in his wallet, straight in his wallet.
Yeah,
incredible.
100%.
And he's never been ill.
Never ill. Like, I remember we were stood in the BP garage once. I used to buy him a cup of tea every day, right? We stood in the BP garage, and I know that he's like allergic to bananas. He would never eat a banana or anything healthy. It's just never going to happen, right? And I can see with the tea, it's advertised free banana and poppy seed muffin with every cup of tea. So we stood there in the queue. There's about 20 people around us, and we're looking at the front. And I just very calmly, just staring dead straight forward, go, do you want a banana and poppy seed muffin with your tea, Kev? And he, just looking dead forward with his deadpan humor, goes, I'd rather rub dog shit in my eyes. And everyone in the garage turns around, and we both just stand there. I'm thinking it could only have come out of his mouth. Like, literally, no one else could have said that. I mean, who would think of a saying like that?
Oh my God. I'm not great with, see where he's even the idea of doing this podcast, I'm a bit squeamish with the whole.
You look a bit queasy, actually.
I mean, come on, wiping shite off the fucking iPhone screen
with his finger. With his finger, yeah, with his finger.
It's not. It's not for me. It's not for me. I think you actually nailed a lot of the quick fire questions in that section. So let's just go to our audience. I think James started with a couple from the Trees team. So, Mark, your good friend Mark, tell us about some of your employees, and you've got some good Kev stories. You've kind of done a bit of that. So, are you coming to see the live pod in Gloucester?
I don't know. I mean,
way too big a pause there, mate.
That was way too big a pause. He's a bit like, mate, bad enough I've even done this.
I would definitely come see the live pod, like 100%. Like, yeah, I've listened to loads of your podcasts now. I've been enjoying them. Like, I don't profess to know anything about the music like you guys do, and I know you're both very passionate about it. But I admire both of your passion in the way you talk about what you love, and so. Even though I don't know who Wild Heart is or who all these bands you talk about, I'm hearing it. I'm hearing James talk about it. And I'm like, I'm enjoying listening to him and yourself, Gab. I'm enjoying the podcast.
James's stories about Wild Hearts are more fun than listening to the Wild Hearts. So,
Pete, well, I'm going to put you on the guest list for Gloucester. Come and have a couple of beers with us.
Mate, I'm going to put you on the fucking stage after this. Never mind the guest list. You're coming up and chatting with us. Hey, what's Rob got to say for himself?
Okay, Rob Scarlett would like to know why does Pete never put the toilets where I ask him to? So there is this thing, Pete, I will tell you, because Rob's job is doing the site plan, and one of the jobs I do is marking out the site, and we mark out exactly where every marquee goes, every toilet block goes. And for some reason, you seem to choose an area about 15 meters away from the bit that we...
Do you know why I've got that wrong 2 years in a row, James? But I've paid for it by having to move like 50 loos in one go, haven't I, each time?
It's quite a horrible thing to say to someone, you know, those 50 toilets are in the wrong place, don't you?
Believe me, that row is not going to go in the wrong place this year. There's no way. I'm getting that right. Yeah.
Good. Okay, let's move on to some audience questions. Neil Parks is asking, is there a genre of music that leaves the toilets in a worse state? Do you have any sense of that?
No, but I mean, if you go and do a classical gig down at Lamphony Priory and they're all there in dicky bows and they're going to leave the toilets a lot cleaner than the mosh pit at the cave, aren't they?
Do you do any dance music or electronic raves or anything like that?
No, we don't do any raves. No.
See, that would probably be my thinking, because in Scotland we had a big festival, Tea in the Park, which was indie rock dance with it, and I think just festival standards have got so much better in the last 15 years, and I think back then it was probably one low to 1,000 people and cleaned once every 3 days. But I remember that's when you go into a toilet and the shite is coming up above the rim and there's nothing in it. It's like the entire unusable. You couldn't even squat. I mean,
I bet it was horrendous, Gav. I classify that as like on a similar level to Glastonbury. Or Glastonbury, I've got a lot of things right now, but it's one of those gigs that I don't think I'd want to be involved with something as big as that. The numbers are just too big, aren't they? They're too big. It's just too much. Can you imagine that many people in one place all using toilets? Like,
you get the rave ones. Sometimes you go to, and it's the toilets aren't really being used as toilets. They're just cubicles where you can consume drugs. You can go there like, oh no one's flushed this yet, but there's fucking powder everywhere.
Yeah. That's what those guys love the trailer toilets because they can lock themselves in there. They've got a nice porcelain loo to use. They get the seat down, they use it, and so you've got little games like at Cornbury we used to put WD-40 on the tops of the toilet seats, on the lids, on the seats. Yeah, and it worked because you would come there and flick it. You'd hear people going, oh, making noises, and you'd be like, you go and wash, you come out of the toilet, there's all the stuff all mushed on the top, and you just laugh.
Is that because ultimately you're there? It's not you're not responsible for health and safety or policing or drugs. I mean, ultimately you go there, you want your toilets to come back and not be destroyed. And
Yeah.
but is it a concern to you for them to be going in there for somebody to go and have a shag or do a line of gear, or I mean, or do you just go like, fucking do what you do, and I just want them back in
Yeah,
good
they're
condition?
gonna do it, aren't they? They're gonna do it. Like at the cave, one year, me and Chris were doing the toilets quite late at night, and all we got to do is pump out two more loos, and we're finished. It's the end of the night. We're going to go home, and we're ready to roll. And there's two loos locked, and we wait in, and we stood there outside waiting, and we're like giving a little knock, nothing of it. So I very carefully slide the door from the outside open and have a little peek. There's nobody in the one loo. Some idiots like locked the door, plenty games, no one's there. So we're like, oh Christ. So I go to the next one thinking it's the same, slide the thing, start opening it, and there's a dude stood there like this, and he's getting a blowjob. He's on the floor in front of him. So I just let go of the door and think, oh my God. Anyway, people are chomping at the bit to use the toilets, and this lad comes up and goes, and have you done that one, mate? Can I use it? I went, knock yourself up, buddy. I stepped back, and he opens the door, and he didn't just slam it. He stood there for ages, like watching. And this guy inside didn't move. He just stood there going, and this poor girl, she was on display to like about 50 people staring at her. But knock yourself out. If you're going to do that, just do it. I'm not, I can't do anything about it.
James is sitting and Brian, can we please edit out the fact that was mentioned at my festival?
Hey, James, it happens, doesn't it?
Well, apparently so. Apparently so. So, all John Lankford would like to know, Pete, where does all the poo go? Where does it go?
The poo goes to the waste treatment works. It goes to Netheridge in Gloucester, and we have an external contractor who comes and takes it in one go and gets rid of it there. It's got to go to a registered site.
And you pay per cubic meter.
You pay per cube. Yeah, you pay per cube. Yeah. So he's taking 30 cubes.
Kaylee Nicholson wants to know, do your teams ever get to enjoy any of the events at all, or is it purely clean, do it again and then rotation it back to sleep?
Most of it is workout, but there is always like a little period, normally on the Saturday at Trees and sometimes on the Friday, where sort of come late afternoon, early evening, maybe we've had some dinner. The guys are very generous. They give us drinks tokens that we don't often use most of, because we're not drinking a lot while we're there, but you get to go and get a cider and sit on the top of the tank, and you can see over the top of everybody. And when everyone's outside in that main arena watching that main stage, it's a pretty impressive sight to behold.
What music would you listen to if you're at home? What you sticking on?
I'm a massive Clutch. I love Clutch, but I don't like anything as hard as like you guys. Like James take the piss out of me with the music I listen to. My wife and I, we're going to see Coldplay at Wembley, and like James laughs at this mainstream stuff. But yeah, I like music, but I'm not on your level. Like I can't. Yeah, like you guys are aficionados. Like the stuff you guys know is just like, it blows my mind. I don't know how you know the names of all these bands and all these artists. You guys just seem to know so much.
Yeah, I feel like you calling me an aficionado carries less weight, because you called my brother a genius about an hour ago. So
Come on, I love you both. Come on.
Okay, here's a guy Daryl Mills,
yes,
who is our staging
top man.
He is an absolute top man. He would like to know, what's the best item you've ever found in the poop? And a follow-on question from that is from Andrew Goodberry, who wants to know what the weirdest item you've ever found left behind in one of your losers. So any good finds?
Yeah, well, I found a woman's wedding ring once. It was a big one, like a big diamond, and we managed to get it back to her. So that's probably the best thing I've ever found inside a toilet. But the weirdest thing was a guy. It was the end of the festival. There was like probably about 50 toilets left there that had been being used by the campsites. People had now cleared out the campsites and were picking everything up. And I got to almost the second last loo, and it was full. It was level full to the brim. And this guy had obviously needed to go to the toilet really badly, and he'd opened that door and gone in, and the toilet's level full. And he'd had a neck brace on. So he took his neck brace off. He positioned it in the bowl, and he shat inside the neck brace and just left it there. Like, didn't make a mess. It filled the neck brace up inside the bowl. And I just thought, oh my God, he sacrificed his neck brace to go to the toilet because the toilet was full. And that's the weirdest thing I've ever seen inside a toilet, ever. I mean, it was hilarious, but it was like, oh my God.
Good. I think Gav's going to be sick in a minute. I love it.
Mate, honestly, there's somewhere in this office. I've got a Scottish Journalism of the Year award that I won in 2016, right? And I'm thinking about that just now as we're having this conversation. Like, fuck, Gav, where you've gone to in life, mate, where you've ended up. People shitting into a neck brace.
Which leads us on brilliantly to Sean Dooley's question, which is, and look, these are the fans' questions. So we're asking what the fans want to know.
Yeah.
What is the biggest shit you've ever seen?
Yeah, definitely a 3-incher, like bigger than my arm. Like sometimes you wonder how a human being can do that. Like we sometimes call each other over when we're working. So if you see something really amusing, it looks like a discus or a 3-inch arm or something, you like go to the other lads, boys, you've got to come have a look. And we all look inside and have a look and all start laughing to each other and then just carry on. It's like another day in the office. But I guess if any of you guys were to see,
is this like the way we describe sizes to women?
Yeah, no, I kid you not. Like I'm talking like 30 centimeters and 3 inches in diameter. Like I don't even know how it comes out, Gav. I swear to God, like I don't even know how it would come out of someone's body. Like, yeah.
So we always create a little highlights reel for Instagram. That the last 20 seconds is it. That's the one. If you want to watch this episode, this is it.
You know what depresses me, Pete? Usually, in the first few times that we've done these kind of podcasts, and we get a wee bit geeky and a wee bit like it's nothing to do with the music or and people come in and go, I'd say, like, okay, well at least we've scratched that itch, but we can get on with our careers here. And then people go, that was my favourite episode. So part of me is going like, you know what? Someone's listening to this going, that's the best. Like this is episode 62, and the best thing we've accomplished is talking to you about the size of somebody's shit. And I mean, it's like it's a lot to comprehend. I'm trying to put a smile on it.
And so we've exhausted our questions. So I'm going to leave Pete to tell us one more story if he would like to. Now, I reserve the right to edit this story out of the podcast afterwards. So if this now goes to suddenly...
Totally. But
I don't know what you're going to say. So
yeah, no, I totally. You can edit any of it out if you want, but I'll do them as quick as I can. But I've actually got 2, James, because
lovely.
Nathan texted me earlier on.
Don't rush, mate. Take your time.
So we're doing Greenbelt Festival about 4 years ago, just after COVID, and we're emptying the waste from the trucks. Now there's a 3-inch pipe on the trucks that you empty the waste through, but the only place they had for us to store the waste was in these pillow tanks, dirty pillow tanks. But it's got a 2-inch fitting on the top of it, so it's going from a 3-inch on the truck reduced down into a 2-inch into this pillow. So there's 4 of us there. All our trucks are lined up waiting to empty. My truck's at the front. I've got Nathan outside, and he's like couples the pipe onto my truck. I put it on blow in the cab. It's coming out down the pipe, and he's standing next to the pipe, and it stops blowing because it's obviously got a blockage on the 2-inch end. It stops, and it won't do anything. It's just shuddering and juddering. So he's saying to me, turn the pump off. He can see me in the cab from the mirror. So I turn the pump off. I get out. It's built up loads of pressure. I'm like, look, I run it again. You know, I reckon it'll push it through. It'll be fine. I start the pump again. And he stood by the 3-inch pipe where the outlet of the truck is. And I started up again. And the Jubilee clip that was holding the pipe onto the fitting wasn't on tight enough. And the pipe went and came off. And this jet, it hit him in the chest and threw him backwards. The truck's under like half a bar pressure, blowing 3 inches. It hit him. It went into his beard. It went in his hair. It ran down inside all his clothing. It was in his pockets. And he stood there with his eyes closed going, like screaming. All 4 of us, James, all of us that are there, we all got out the trucks. We all turned our phones on. And we were all walking around filming him, standing in front of him. None of us ran to go, are you all right, mate? Get you some towels. We're all going, oh, Nate, you're all right, filming. And he stood there going, oh, rip. Oh my God. And then
where do you go for it as a human? Where do you go from there? What's the next step of your life? I mean, after being covered in, I don't know, 97 people's different shite, it's like...
Oh, I mean, yeah. Can you imagine? And his beard's bigger than James's as well. So can you imagine, Gav?
I would shave my skin off. I would shave my...
Yeah, we hosed the hell out of him. We hosed him down. We stripped him off. Then we sent him to the showers. He showered. We threw all his clothes away. And then we just let him go home. It was like end of it for him because
Well,
he was like,
how thoughtful of you.
we carried on, Gav, and got the work done on our own, did the work of an extra man because he was man down. Come on.
Did he come back? He came back to
Yeah, of
work
course
after
he
that?
did. Yeah, of course he did. He went back to the travel lodge where we were staying and he slept and then came back the next day. He's back on it. Like I say, weirdly, we're not ill. And I don't know if it's just because we're around it all the time. We are our antibodies. I don't know. But we're not sick people, any of us. We're just, yeah, weirdly. But Nath also has, as far as I'm concerned, it's the worst and the best toilet story. But you can definitely edit this if you want afterwards, by all means. But this genuinely is something that happened, and again happened to him weirdly. So he's the holder of our best stories. But I won't mention names of the companies, but it was an outfit picking onions in fields, and I've got a lot of staff working for them, and they have multiple sets of trailers with toilets on. So they're scattered all over the field. A trailer holds 4 loos, 2 and 2, 2 and 2 back to back, and there's a stainless steel sink in the middle, and the people can use the loos from either side. So he gets to this field early in the morning. He's going to clean these toilets out, and he sees the buses arriving with all these people to pick in the fields at the top of the field, and he thinks, I'm going to go down the bottom where those bottom trailers are. I'm going to clean those first. I'll come up to the middle. By the time I get to the middle, they'll be heading towards me. I'll finish them before they get there. I'll get to the top of the field, and then I'm doing them. They'll be gone from there, and I'll leave. And I won't have to be around any of these people because they get in your way. They lock themselves in. They mess you around. Anyway, gets to the bottom. No one's there. The trailer's just there all on its own in this onion field. Just nobody there. He walks round the trailer to one side and tries the door, and it's locked. Can't open it. And so he thinks to himself, perhaps when they towed this trailer here, they locked the door for transit purposes so it wouldn't flap open. So he gets his little Leatherman out and he unlocks the door and opens it. And inside the toilet is a woman masturbating herself on the pump handle sticking out of the tank. She is gyrating up and down on the pump handle. He slams the door, right? He goes back around the other side. He gets me on the phone and he goes, how do I unsee it? How can I unsee this? How can I unsee this?
How can I unhear it? Right? How can I unhear it?
How bad is that, Gav? How bad? I mean, that's a handle, Gav, that 1,000 other people have flushed that toilet when they've been in the toilets with onion-stained hands from picking onions, and she's on top of it like a dildo. What the hell goes wrong in some people's minds?
Pete, it was lovely to meet you, pal. Right, that's me. That's me. I'm done, mate. I'm done. I've
done you, Gav. I've done you. I've finished you. Sorry. It's been a pleasure meeting you, though. It really has.
We do still have an on the record, which hopefully has no more of your content in it. Just a nice innocent Coldplay, a nice fix you by Coldplay will do fine on this, right?
James said I can choose a song that goes on the Spotify thing at the end. So my song would be, and it's actually my alarm clock on my phone, is "Mob Goes Wild" by Clutch. That's my song that I choose.
That is a good shout, and people will appreciate that. And honestly, Pete, that's well, they can't complain. They asked for you, mate. I never asked for you. I never asked for you. They requested you. They had the questions. If they come back, does it? Oh, by the way, some of these stories were a bit too far. Tough, right? That's
hopefully I've educated some of them. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I mean, all joking aside, that was there was a lot of decent stuff in there too. All the atrocities, the Portable atrocities aside, there was some good and interesting stuff there. And I will take on board your point about just the numbers, because even I never knew that. And let's face it, I didn't want to get into how much cost like hire is in cleaning, because that's your business and it's not for us to go through the numbers, but it's expensive. Even in an indoor-outdoor, for a one-day event, we're spending four and a half grand on Portaloos. So, I mean, when you go outdoors, it's serious capital, exactly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
On the record, James. On the record, have you following up Clutch?
Mate, I'm utterly shell-shocked by the final story there. I'm wondering, even though I've heard the fucking story before, and I didn't want to control Pete, so I thought I won't tell him what to say or what not to say. I'll just see where it goes.
Well, I just figured you'd edit it, James, if it was, do you know what I mean?
Hell of a story. I'll leave that with Gav. But my on the record is In Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth by Code and Cambria. I am absolutely obsessed with this song. I have I listen to this song about 8 times a day at the moment. It's an absolute banger. So yeah, that means they're on the record playlist twice, Gav. You'll be disgusted to hear.
Yeah, I was when I saw it, and I thought you'd have put a wee bit more effort into the theme of the podcast, like myself. I am going to go with Strapping Young Lad and Shitstorm, because that's what we were supposed to do.
You thought that one through, didn't you?
And if nothing else, it's a fucking banger. If you know Strapping Young Lad, you'll know what you're getting with that. But
I'll listen to it. I'll listen to it on my way home. I'll listen to it.
Oh my God, Pete, get that Code and Cambria song on. You will love it, mate.
I will. I'll listen to that. I'll listen to both of them.
Listen, my jaws are sore, but not from laughing, Pete, from the tension of listening to the stories from there. Oh my God, where is this going? Like, please make it stop. This Jubilee clip is not going to break off and fire shit into this guy's beard. Please tell me that is not the punchline. Oh, you've been good crack, as they say in Dublin. Fucking lovely to have you on. Looking forward to seeing you and shaking your non-blue hand in Gloucester.
100%. Looking forward to when's this live gig? When are you doing it?
We are in Gloucester on the 22nd of this month.
Okay.
It's a Saturday night, I think.
Saturday night. Come out, let's get a few drinks, have a laugh, because people will know your face by this point anyway, if they've watched it on YouTube. So they can, by all means, if you want to dig out a few stories for them, you can tell them over a pint or two. So it'd be great to see you, big chap. Thanks for coming on.
100%. It's been a pleasure, lads. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks so much, Pete. Really appreciate it, mate.
Okay, James. Be good.
Take soon.